Thank you so much for joining us. We are really excited to have you today. We have some exciting information to share with you. I am going to go ahead and start the introductory. Arun is going to be our senior product manager who's going to be giving you a high-level overview of what you can do with our API and show you how amazing and easy it is. And I'm going to be leading the session and kind of going through and asking some questions here and there to um, hopefully ask some of the questions that you'll be asking yourselves. And you'll be free to do that as well in our chat group. Just a few pieces of housekeeping. First, our safe harbor statement. I'm sure you all have seen this a million times before. We always want to tell everyone to please make their purchasing decisions upon current functionality and features. Next, we want to remind you guys we have amazing Go Social channels. There's Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn. You can see the list here. There's many places that you can go to check out this webinar if for any reason you have to leave early. Also, the webinar is being recorded. Please give our team about a week to get this up and running, but we will have this and be posting it for you so you can see the live recording or hear the live recording again. We are aware that there are some very exciting soccer games going on today, so maybe if you're lucky, one of our question answering people in here will post a score for you. Next, I wanted to remind everybody about the Summer of Hacks. There's the hashtag up in the corner so you can follow information about it on Twitter. I have just recently got some information that we're getting close to sellout point for July, but the rest of them are still available. So please visit the website below, summerofhacks.com, and check it out and see if it's something you're interested in. Again, I doubt I need to say this, but Dreamforce is coming up. So exciting. We wait for this all year. There's going to be amazing stuff going on, and even better, we have a developer discount. So please definitely take advantage of this. Don't miss out on something so amazing. And then for the last bit of housekeeping, please join the success community. We put a lot of effort into that to make sure that our PMs and customers and all kinds of people are on there mining it daily. It's if you can go to the URL, at success.salesforce.com and go to the reporting and dashboards group. You can ask your questions there, and like I said, people are mining it daily. So you can keep your conversations going. Anything that doesn't get answered here today is a great place to be posted there. And then just a little bit of our webinar etiquette that we can please ask you to follow. Don't wait till the end to ask your question. We have people sitting in the room right now that are going to be answering your questions live. Also, try not to repeat questions. I know you're excited to have them answered, but we've got a team here working as quickly as they can to get them answered. Again, at the end, we're going to have some time for live Q&A. So hopefully we will be able to tackle all the questions. If not, again, the success community, ask away. All your questions answered and turned into conversations. It's a great real-time way to communicate about this stuff again. So our agenda today was the intro, which you just got, and I'm going to give you a little bit more. And then Arun is going to be showing you 2 demos. These are follow-along demos, so please feel free to go into your browser and follow along and take the steps that Arun is taking. It's fun to see. You'll see how easy this is to follow along and complete. Again, it will be recorded. And then last, we're going to finish up with about 15 minutes of live Q&A where Arun will be he'll be reading some of the questions that we haven't got to out loud and answer them for you. So to start off with the intro, one of the most important things to us is our vision and value around analytics here. And why mobile has been something that we've been focusing on with Salesforce1, and it's something that's so important to us because it drives business and it keeps people on their toes, having information faster, which is amazing for their businesses and for customers. It is not what we're focusing on today. What we're focusing on today is the fact that analytics and the API is open and easy. I believe that probably the majority of people that I'm talking to today are developers. And you guys are the experts. You know some of this stuff, and maybe we'll show you some new stuff, but you are going to be the experts in the room. What's amazing about this is I'm not one of those experts and I can do this. So it is genuinely easy. You don't have to be a coder or a developer to do this. This is based for any business user to be able to use. And that capability is amazing. It's something that you just don't get. And it's really exciting for people who maybe aren't the experts who want to know how to do this stuff to learn. So we're really, really excited to share this with you. So next, I'm going to pass this over to Arun, and he's going to go ahead and start out to give you a background on the Analytics API. Arun?
Thanks, Lauren. So last year in winter 14, we launched the Analytics API. And from then, we've been getting a lot of great feedback. The Analytics API was targeted to provide a very simple way to access all your reports so you can start integrating them with your existing applications as well as start building new applications. And unlike previous APIs we've done, the main distinguishing factor of the Analytics API is that it has a huge advantage for the business user who consumes these applications as well. So just to give you a simple example, let's say you build an app on the Analytics API which uses a report as a data source, and it turns out that your business users don't want to look at data that's grouped by state. Instead, they want to look at it by stage, or they want to look at it by region. All they need to do is they just need to go back to their reports and modify these reports. This is great if you're a developer because you're no longer dealing with change requests. You're not doing very repetitive stuff like changing your queries and testing them. All you need to do is build very metadata-driven applications, focus on the fun part, and then you just tell your business users, go change your data. One of the biggest examples last year was Expedia. So they were an early participant in the Analytics API pilot. And one of the first things they did was they were able to take the API and build out a real-time dashboard. And the use case was they wanted everybody in the sales organization to be able to look at these dashboards on big screens. And these dashboards are updated real time, so they get all the data. And this is really powerful for the sales manager because every week he could go in, change the report, and have the TVs update and show the latest information. And the developer just has to build the application once.
Arun, there was a really funny story around this when you helped them build this and they weren't able to share their proprietary information, but tell everyone what they did share with you.
That's a good point, Lauren. So if you see the slide, the data that you see is all about drinks. How many drinks were ordered, how many were delivered. And so they couldn't share their sales data with us. So when they did have a team event and a party, they used the same dashboard, built a little app through Salesforce1 where people could order drinks, and then they had this dashboard showing in real time who was still waiting for their drink.
So fun. So it doesn't always have to be all business.
Absolutely. So before we jump into the demo, we wanted to quickly go through some of the common questions we've been getting around the Analytics API.
So tell us about different use cases that are separate from the visualization. What else is there?
Visualizations is definitely a very fun use case, and we'll be going through a couple of charting examples today. But there are a lot of other ways in which the report API is being used. So one of the first things is a notification scenario where people have reports run especially through Apex with our new Apex-based Analytics API. They're running these reports through Apex, monitoring key metrics, and then on a scheduled basis, they're posting notifications to Chatter. It could be something like every week, there's a list of people who have met their quota, who haven't met their quota, and then we give them a badge or a message on Chatter.
And is this just as easy as everything else we're discussing today?
It's absolutely very easy. Maybe we would do a session dedicated to Apex in the future. We have some very nice examples in the developer guide for you to check out. In addition to visualizations, there are also entire applications that are being built with the report API as the data source. The example that you see here is one built by the task group. The task group has built out a complete sales management application that uses multiple reports as data sources. This is really great because as an admin, when you buy one of these applications and you want to customize the application for your org, all you need to do is tweak those reports or maybe change the reports, and they're no longer dealing with getting more developer resources just for customization purposes.
Interesting.
And again, if you do have some great stories on how you're using the API and you want us to showcase your wonderful innovation, please reach out to us on the success community. We'd be very happy to use that as a driving example.
So as I mentioned earlier, I'm one of the people who are not an expert in the room. I'm not a developer. I don't know how to code. Can you tell me how this is going to be applicable to me? How am I going to learn that this is easy to me as well?
The analytics API is going to be very easy for you to try on. So it doesn't matter if you're not a developer, you don't have to fear the words API. First off, we have a wonderful example called My Charts that's available on App Exchange. You can just download the application and right away see the power of how you can use different visualizations with the API. This one is also Salesforce1 ready, so you can start using it on your mobile as well. This requires no coding. It's completely free of charge. It's a great app. And we've also open sourced all of the code behind the application, so you can use it as a starting point to learn and educate yourself. Secondly, we're going to be going through a lot of copy-paste kind of examples today. Most of them are in the GitHub URL that is mentioned on the screen. There you'll see that just by copy pasting and changing a couple of report IDs, you can get very cool examples up and running. So this is a great way for you to test out the API, do some proof of concept, and then if you're really interested, you should start learning to code. That isn't hard as well.
For you, maybe. It would be great if you could tell us right when it's a good time for us to follow along. I'm going to follow along here in the room with you.
Definitely.
So what are the limits of analytics API? Where does it hit a glass ceiling?
One of the important things to take into account before you start designing your production application is the limits. So we currently have two main limits. The first one is the data size. The report returns only 2,000 rows to the API, and we don't have a query mode or paging option right now. So that's one thing to keep in mind. Second is you could run up to 1,900 reports an hour. This is a fairly large number, and most people have not hit the limit yet. But one thing to keep in mind is that report executions are fairly performance intensive, and you probably want to build applications that are not high volume.
And why is that?
So if you have a large number of users in your org and everybody is trying to log in and use it at the same time, 1,900 may not be sufficient.
Okay.
So it's definitely something you want to keep in mind.
So tell me more about Apex support.
So one of the first set of feedbacks we got when we did the API was that people said we wanted an Apex, we wanted an integrated with the platform, we want an easy way to run reports inside our language that we're familiar with. So in Spring 14, we launched Apex support. So all the capabilities that are available to the API are available to Apex as well. So we just want to draw your attention to this in case you've missed this update. So on that note,
all right, so now would be a good time for us to start following along.
Absolutely.
All right, so jump on your browsers if you want to build some charts with Arun right now.
So we're going to do a very slow step-by-step walkthrough on how you can start building your first application on the Analytics API. So the first step would be for you to go in and open this URL in GitHub. I'm going to post the link on the chat. So now you have the GitHub URL link. This is going to be the page that we are going to copy paste and start with. You can see that Pat is fairly active on the chat screen as well. As I've said previously, one of the data sources we're going to use is a matrix report for this application. So let's go in and look at a very simple standard report. In case you don't have a report ready, it's very simple to build a matrix report. Maybe we could show you how to do that towards the end as well. So what this example is showing you is we're taking opportunity data and then we are grouping it by 2 dimensions. We're looking at it by state on the vertical axis, and then we're looking at it by stage on the horizontal axis. So you have this really nice matrix report that is showing you what is your pipeline sliced and diced by different points. Though the matrix report is very, it has a lot of details, what you probably are looking for from visualizations or charts is you want to take one look and immediately find out what's happening. And unfortunately, the matrix table is not very suitable for that. So in order to accomplish that, what we are going to do is we are going to open up new chart based on D3. And what this application is going to do is it's going to run this report through the analytics API, get the data, and then show it as a very nice animated chart. So first step is you're going to copy all of the code from the page without any changes. And then you come into your setup, Visualforce pages tag. It's under development pages. If you're not familiar, we say we want a new page. Let's give it a test name like webinar demo 1. Now what we're going to do is we're going to paste the code as is with no changes. You see that the main connection between the application and the data source is the report ID. So on line 33, you have the report ID. What we're going to do is we're going to replace the report ID with the newly created report that we have. We're going to delete that and then paste the report ID right here. So next step is quickly hit save, and then you say preview. So now you see that right away you have this animated chart that gives you all the data. And just by changing the chart engine, you're able to see your data in different ways. But of course, now you're grouping by state. There's a lot of dimensions. The chart doesn't look great. Let's say as a developer, you build this application, and I come in as a business user and say, I don't like the chart. I don't want to look at it by state. I want to look at it by lead source. So the thing about the analytics API is to do that customization, all you need to do is go and change the report. All you need to do is go and change the report. So for example, I go back to my source report. I say I don't want to look at it by billing state. Instead, I want to look at it by lead source, for example, or type. Let's choose type. It's easier. So you see that I've made the change to the report. I'm going to save the report. And now if I come back to the page, you can see that with absolutely no code change, the chart has been customized.
Wow, okay.
So it's that easy to go from a simple report to your application and then have your application customized with just clicks. Now let's go back to the code and do a quick walkthrough to understand what's happening. So in case you need to customize this application for your own use, it's easy. So the first thing we're looking at in the code is all the libraries that we are importing. So the first 3 lines of code is we're importing the jQuery library, which helps us make Ajax calls easily. And then we're downloading the chart engine from the D3 website. If you'd like, you can always have these as static resources served off the Salesforce domain as well. The next step in the process is we need to make a call to the analytics API to fetch the data. So that is exactly what this line is doing. So if you see the line that starts with Ajax, what we're doing is we're going to the Salesforce API, which is services, data, analytics report, and then we're passing in the report ID. And then we're asking the Salesforce server to run the report and come back with the data, which is going to be available in the success section. If you want to know more about the actual data structure of the response, I would encourage you to look at the developer guide as well as the cheat sheet. We'll be posting links to both of them right after the session. They give you a visual example on how a matrix report is translated into JSON. But at a very high level, what we have is we have 2 arrays. One array giving you the list of dimensions on the vertical axis, the second one giving you a list of dimensions on the horizontal axis, and then there's a map that basically tells you what is the aggregate value for the combination. So going back to the example, So how your data structure is going to look is you're going to have one array, which would be add-on new business services, another array which is going to be prospecting qualification to closed lost, and then there's a map which looks exactly like this table here. So if you're looking for a specific aggregate, you want to find out what is the pipeline for new business and value proposition, you would just take a combination of these two and look in. Right now, what we're trying to do is we're trying to build a chart with all of the data. So in order to accomplish that, what we're doing is we're going to go to every aggregate, every grouping in the across dimension. We're going to go to every grouping in the down dimension, and then we're going to pick out the aggregate. So that's what is happening in the code. So we get the key for the down dimension, which is DE underscore key, and then we get the key for the across dimension, which is AE dot key. We go to the fact map, which contains all your aggregates, and then we pick out the first aggregate and store the value. In addition to the aggregate value, we also need the names of the dimensions for the chart. So that is what is happening in the labels. So by systematically going through the data set, we built out this array called chart data, which contains x-axis name, y-axis name, and value. And once we have that, all we need to do is pass it down to the chart engine, which happens in this call, which is d3.select, which says go and draw me a chart with this ID, which is the SVG tag that you see here. If you want to make the chart bigger or smaller, you can very easily do it with the style settings. And then you pass in the data set, and then you say, please draw me a chart, which gives you this wonderful chart right away. You also see that this chart is automatically uploading all the time. So the example that we are trying to show you here is kind of an auto-refreshing dashboard that you can use as a leaderboard projected on a big screen TV.
How does that work? How is it auto refreshed?
Good question. So in order to do auto refreshing, all we're doing is we're doing standard timeout functions in JavaScript. So you see that we have the draw chart method, which goes on draw this chart. So once the drawing is complete, we say wait for 5 seconds and then draw it again, which means after 5 seconds, it's going to make an API call, get the data, and draw the chart. Obviously, for demo purposes, we're running this every 5 seconds. If you start doing this, you'll quickly run out of limits. So in a production system, you probably don't need to auto refresh until the order of minutes. So that's something to keep in mind. So there you have it, a very simple example on how you can go from a simple report to a real-time auto refreshing dashboard in less than 10 minutes. And since it's based on the API, you could easily plug in any other data set. So what started out as a leaderboard for a sales use case, now you can easily translate it to even a services use case, like monitoring cases. So let me quickly show you how this works by changing the report. So here I have another report, which is a completely different object. This is on cases, where we are looking at what is the number of cases open by type and by status. So this could be a very call center centric application. All you need to do for this is just take the report ID, which is your data source. You go back to your Visualforce page and say, the first chart is great, but I want to show this one as well. All you need to do is you need to replace the report ID. So you don't even have to replace. Maybe you want to add 2 charts. Maybe let's do that. Maybe a better example. So what we're doing is we're copy pasting the first line of code, which is drawing a chart. And then we say we don't want to limit to 1 chart. We want to have 2 charts in our dashboard. We use the sales report as the data source for the first one, and we use the cases report as the data source for second. Like each chart needs its own container, so which is why we are copy pasting the line 38, which is we're saying put the opportunity report in the chart tag and put the cases report in the chart 2 tag. So we go back and save the page. And now if you were to reload this Visualforce page, you're going to start seeing 2 charts. So you can see that very easily you can reuse the same piece of code or application you have written and very quickly scale it to a number of data sets.
That's incredible.
So now you saw how you can use one of the chart engines that is very popular called D3. which gives you animated charts with easy interaction and so on. During the session, we also wanted to draw your attention to another charting engine called Raphael. It has, again, a wide variety of chart options that are not available in the previous one. So in order to follow along, we're going to wait for a minute or so, and then I'm going to post the next example on the screen. So we can start with that one. So Pat, is it time for the next update on score? Yeah.
All right, it looks like you are getting an update on soccer or football, should I say, score right now.
Very exciting game.
All right, now for demo 2.
So now for demo 2, in this example, what we're going to do is we're going to use the dot chart. You can see that this again is a very simple example with around 50 lines of code. We're going to follow the same procedure, which is we're going to go in and copy the Visualforce page. We're going to go back to our Visualforce tags, which is under development pages. We say we want to make a new demo. The last one we named it webinar test. This time we can do webinar test 2. So let's go ahead and do that. And we're going to copy paste this example. So as always, the first step is to identify the data source and figure out the report ID. So in this case, let's start with the case report. We copy the report ID and we replace the report ID in the example with the report that we want to use. And then we just click save. Just for today's example, we are going to matrix reports, but the report API should support other report types like tabular and summary as well, and tweaking the code should be fairly straightforward. So let's look at this example. And what you're looking at is what is popularly known as a dot chart. The main advantage of using a dot chart to a tabular matrix view is that with just one view, you know what is the biggest contributor and what is the smallest contributor. So for example, by looking at this table, it wasn't really clear to you that you have a lot of new technical issues in your support queue. But just by looking at this chart, you see that the biggest contributor is technical issues in the new state. And the next one is you used to have a lot of installation issues, but they've been closed right now. And as a case manager, if you don't want to look at all your cases, you just want to look at open cases, all you need to do is go back to the report and add a filter to say status open or status closed. So that's what we're doing right now. We are going to add a filter to say that show me only cases that are not closed. We add the filter, save the report, and now if we come back and reload the page, you can see that the status has been completely changed. You're just looking at all of the cases that are currently open. So now you can start to see that while the application is fairly easy to build, it's also very easy for your business users to customize. So anybody who's familiar with editing reports can now tweak the application to their needs, and they no longer have to come to you asking for changes in queries or changes in data sets. So now let's walk through the code to understand how this actually works. So as always, the first set of script tags here is downloading the library. Here again, we use jQuery to manage all our calls to the API. And we download this chart engine called Raphael. Raphael is again an open source chart engine that gives you quite a few chart types which are usually not found in the standard ones. Similar to the previous example, the first step is to make a call to the analytics API. This AJAX call is basically asking the system to run the report and to return back the data. Here again, the response is going to be very similar, where you have two arrays of dimensions and a map containing all the aggregates. And we're going to do the same steps, which is go through all the down dimensions, collect the labels, go through all the across dimensions, collect the labels, and then for each combination of down dimension and across dimension, collect the aggregates. So going back to the matrix report, what we're doing is we're going to each type of technical issue. For each type of technical issue, we're asking what are all the different statuses the issues are in. And then for each combination, which is a cell in this matrix, we are collecting the aggregate value, which is what is happening in this set of code. Here again, one thing to remember is that each chart engine expects the data set to be available in a different format. So in the previous example, we tried to massage it from the Salesforce format to the D3 format. Now we are trying to massage it from the Salesforce format to the Raphael format. So you can see that while D3 expected just one array, Raphael wants data to be available in 2 or 3 different arrays, which is what we're doing here. We're passing in the values, we're passing in the labels, and then we're also specifying uh, size, which is the aggregate array. Uh, the last 10 lines of code right here is very standard example that I copy pasted from the Raphael website. All it's doing is identifying what the axis is, what the label is, and what should happen on hover. This is standard boilerplate code that should just work right at the box. And the final container for the chart is going to be this div tag, where we say we want a width of 1200 by 800. The reason we've chosen this size is because when you're looking at a large data set with a lot of dimensions, seeing in this broad view makes sense. But if you're building this for a mobile application, you probably want to make sure the width and height are defined in percentage or something that's better suited for a mobile experience. So there you have it, a very simple example again of how you tie in the report API with a visualization. Let me just go through and try to change the report ID and show you how the views are different when you use a case report versus an opportunity report. Let's go back to our pipeline report, which contains a lot more dimensions and groupings. So you can see that very easily you could build an application with one test data set, and then you can start sharing it with the entire community. So an app built by one person can be very easily reused by the other person because the main tie-in is to the report ID. And once you're able to change the report and customize the report, the app should be completely customized. So you can see that what was a sales scorecard can also be used for services. So it's very simple, very straightforward, and all customization is done through the report. Thanks, Lauren.
No problem. Thank you for the demo. That was great. So now, just to wrap things up again and bring things full circle, we want to remind you just once more to please make sure to join the success community. Again, I see Pat typing away over here, and I think that probably a lot of the questions are getting answered, but of course there's going to be some extras, and the success community is a great place to send those. And then, oh, sorry. Okay, and then so for the last bit here, we're going to open up to some live Q&A from Arun. He's going to be reading through some of the questions that you guys have posted and answer those for you.
So let's get started with the questions. So the first question is from Shravan. It says, can the analytics API replace the usage of third-party reporting tools like ClickView? So the main advantage of using analytics API is that all of the customizations like using a different chart, building a more interactive dashboard, or more interactive analytic applications, which were previously not easily possible on the platform, have now been enabled. But one thing to remember is the analytics API is being powered by the Salesforce reporting engine. So in terms of capabilities, it is bound by the capabilities of the reporting engine. So while this does open up a lot of great applications to be built, I wouldn't claim that this is going to be powerful enough to replace powerful BI tools like ClickView or Tableau. Also, the next question is, does a Java API exist for Salesforce.com? Salesforce has a powerful set of REST and SOAP APIs, which are accessible to any client language that you choose. Pat can probably correct me if I'm wrong, but it should be very easy for you to access the Analytics API through Java. Next question from Shaman again is, how is the Analytics API different from Visualforce reports? I'm not entirely sure by what you refer to as Visualforce reports, but we did roll out a couple of Visualforce tags recently for accessing charts, where you can define the charts and then consume it in Visualforce. Well, that is great if you like the charts that you have in Salesforce and you want to reuse it. The Analytics API has been built out for cases where you want to expand it to maybe different chart engines. Can the report data source be an RDBMS table where we are trying to build dashboard using the Analytics API? What is the way to do it? The only data source for the Analytics API are reports saved in Salesforce. One of the easiest things to do in Salesforce is build a report on a data set that already exists. So for example, if you have your data in a custom object, you can very easily build a report on that custom object and use it with the Analytics API to build custom dashboards. We have score updates, great stuff. 1900 an hour. Could I run the same report query every 30 minutes? You absolutely can run the same report multiple times. You could also run different reports. In addition to the synchronous API, we also have an asynchronous API that I would like to point out. The advantage of using the asynchronous API is it not only has a higher limit, but it also automatically caches the data for 24 hours. So for example, if you run a report once, the report results are stored on the Salesforce server. And the next time, if you just want to pick up the data, you could do it and you don't get charged for limits. You only charge, the limits are only used up when the report is actually refreshed. By 2000 rows, meaning if I run the report on my account and there are 3,000 accounts, I won't be able to use the API for that. In a way, Natalie's question means how much of the data is going to be returned. So what that means is your in your Salesforce instance, you could have hundreds of thousands of accounts. And let's say you run a report that groups these accounts by stages or region. What we mean by 2000 is we are going to return you the first 2000 regions. So these 2000 regions could be correlated to just 2000 accounts, or it could be for 200,000 accounts. The limit is just on how you structure your report. So if you want a standard list of all the accounts, you're probably going to get only 2000. But if you're doing a more analytical ask, like group it by region, I want to roll up the data, what you're going to get is the first 2000 dimensions. Is there canned Apex code that would show state type data on a map of the US? I do have one example on the GitHub link on how you can use Salesforce reports to power Google Maps. So there is an example that uses the REST API. It should be very easy to translate that into Apex. Why are dollars getting cut off? That's probably a bug in my code. I just built out a very simple example and I didn't quite do the sizing correctly. So if we go ahead and make the chart wide enough, the dollar amount should be displayed. Can we change the color code for the grouping? You absolutely can completely change the way the chart is displayed. You can change the colors. You could use it, the one that is more suited for your corporate. The example here was just the out-of-the-box code. There are a lot more options that are available both for D3 as well as Raphael charts. And this is just to show you how you can get started. Why does it flash over and over again? Any way to get it to just update when an update is needed. The chart is flashing over and over again because we set auto refresh to 5 seconds. If we take off the auto refresh code, then the chart is not going to keep updating all the time. Is there any way to update it when an update is needed? I'm pretty sure D3 has some nice mechanisms for you to push data and have the chart redraw. What types of reports are available in the API? All reports that you have created in your system that are tabular, summary, or matrix are now available in the API. Joint reports are unfortunately not available in the API yet. Can we pass a filter to with the report ID while calling the API? This is a great question from Rahul because the analytics API does allow you to add more filters. So for example, even if the underlying report is for data for the entire organization, within the application, you can say, I want to take this report and then apply a state filter, or I want to apply a time filter to get a subset of data. There's great documentation around how you define dynamic filters for the REST API as well as the Apex API. So please do check out the standard Salesforce developer documentation. What types of report charts are available for this API? Uh, so since it's an API, what we do is we return the underlying data set in JSON format in REST and to standard Apex objects in Apex. Any chart engine that you find out there and any chart type that you're able to integrate should be easily be available for you in your application. Okay, I don't understand what this comment means. Skip it. I see 3 places to replace the matrix report ID, but the page loads blank. So just in the example, you just need to replace the report ID with the place where you see the default report ID. A report ID is a 15-digit ID that begins with 00 and O. I can go back to the example and show you, but there should be exactly one place you have to change it. If you have any issues and you need more detailed help, please follow up with us in the success community because we would have to look at the code to be able to help you out there. How do you change the access value format? These are again chart engine specific questions. So I would encourage you to look at the documentation for the chart engine, which is D3 or Raphael, for example. Usually there's a configuration where you can specify the format that you need. Should you use a real function instead of a closure in set timeout to avoid memory leak? Absolutely. So you can see that I'm a product manager and not a developer. Can we include it in a Visualforce email template? I'm not quite sure this would work well if you put it on an email template. This is a JavaScript-based application that requires a browser for you to work on. In my report, if my report has filters on it, can I pass filters values dynamically? You can absolutely do that. You can add new filters, you can remove existing filters, and you can also modify the right-hand side operand for your existing filters. And it's available through both Apex and API. What if you want to put charts side by side? This is a Visualforce application. You have complete freedom to design the way you want. It should be very easy for you to put multiple charts side by side, and it just depends on how much screen space you have. Can these Visualforce pages using the API be shown in customer portal or force.com to portal license users? I believe portal users have access to reports. So the main thing that is required to be able to access the analytics API are 2 things. First is the logged in API user needs to have access to the REST API. And secondly, they need to have access to the underlying reports. So if both the access parameters are satisfied, then it should be very easy for you to build these applications and service them even to portal users. Can we use the analytics API in custom components? I'm not entirely sure on what custom components means, but if it's going to be based off of Visualforce, then you can definitely use the analytics API. what type of report for this chart? For this example that we showed you, we're using matrix reports, but you could easily use summary reports as well. How can we share the charts with users? Just send the URL. You could easily do that. So what we have is a Visualforce page that is tied to a report. So you could share out the URL to the Visualforce page like a customized CEO dashboard to the rest of the organization where they can open it, monitor it, and auto refresh it to the know the status. Only we have to do is change the object in the report ID. Uh, so to take the application and reuse it with another data set, all you need to do is change just the report ID. It's as simple as that. Can we use the chart in the Salesforce standard page layout? You can definitely do that. You can take the chart, you can build up a Visualforce page, and then using the standard page layout editor, you can drag in the Visualforce page into your standard layout. So it should be very easily possible for you to surface maybe maps for each account to say where your opportunities are coming from or where the cases are coming from. What do you mean by the limit of 2000 records? I cannot see charts which have more than 2000 records of data. The 2000 records is the API limit. And you're absolutely right that 2000 data points on a chart is going to be a lot to visualize. But the API can be used for a lot more use cases, as we mentioned earlier, apart from visualization. And the 2000 limit is just to give you a heads up on what to expect. There is a flag in the API response called all data, and that is going to tell you if the data set is clipped to the first 2000 or if all the data is being returned to you. I'd really like to use this to have Excel-like charts and have the information side by side. How would I find code to support that? Kind of like a joint report, except that there are truly separate reports. Uh, So my understanding is that you would like to have multiple charts on the same page where each chart is powered by the same report, by different reports. For example, all you need to do is you can look at the D3 example that we went through where we have two charts, one below the other, using different data sets. So if you can work with somebody who has development knowledge of HTML, they can show you how you can put these side by side and still use different data sets. Can I get data from an Excel sheet and display it in the Analytics API? The only data source for the Analytics API, as I mentioned, is Salesforce reports. So you would have to take your Excel sheet and store it into a custom object. So once you build out that integration, you can start to use Analytics API with any form of data. Add two report IDs to the Raphael chart engine. I think there's a request for extending the demo. Unfortunately, right now I'm in the Q&A part of it, but feel free to try it out. And if you have issues, reach out to me in the success community. How do we share the API charts with users? You could share a link to the Visualforce page. That would be a great way to share it out. There are a lot more questions. We're going to take all the remaining questions and we'll handle it in the success community. Thank you all for joining us today. And it's been absolutely fun sharing this great example with you.
Thank
Back
you so
to you,
much.
Lauren.
All right. Thanks again, everyone. We really appreciate you taking the time to listen to the information we had to share, especially when there were two very exciting games going on. So we want to be respectful of your time, and we'll let you get back to work. One more time, visit the success community and keep sending those questions.